Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. This is Mike Berger with NC Planning, bringing another Daily Counsel video, continuing in our series of talking with other professionals and business folks in the space. I'm pleased to have my good friend with me here of over 10 years now, believe it or not, Dr. Gary McGrath with Statarius. Gary, thanks so much for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Michael. How are you doing today?
Doing well, still socially distancing a bit. We're kind of opening back up a little here and there, but still doing some videos from home.
Yeah.
Gary, I know for the folks out there who don't know you, who don't know Statarius, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, what you're doing, and what you're talking to business leaders about these days.
Sure. So I guess the easiest way is I always try to describe what we do. I ask people if they ever had a bad boss. And pretty universally, people say, yeah, and they can remember that boss. And maybe some of your listeners are thinking about that bad boss now. And hopefully they're not sitting next to them watching this video. But they think about that bad boss. They say, well, I get rid of them. I get rid of them by following our mission statement, which is to make good bosses into great leaders with compassionate accountability. That's our mission at Statarius. And the thing is most bosses, most leaders don't have the opportunity in mid to small companies. They don't have the opportunity to be trained and developed by good coaches, good mentors, good leaders. So they're basically doing on experience. And we say at Statarius, experience alone is a horrible teacher. Because what you do is you go back to your experiences, and whether it's as a parent or as a manager, if you had a bunch of bad bosses, unfortunately, you may fall into the same traps because that's all you know. So we work with leaders to really develop their capabilities and their skills of leadership. And it's tough. It's really tough now because with the conditions that we're under, leaders are always under a lot of stress, especially small business leaders. They don't have the same financial availability of funds, and they don't sometimes feel like it's hard to find the right person all the time. So they're struggling, and I get that. I've been a small business owner and worked with big businesses. But stress, I like to talk to the business owners for a minute about what causes stress. And I came across this at the Yale University Stress Center a while back. And stress is caused by things that are uncontrollable, unpredictable, and sustainable. And when we think about this COVID virus that we're, the cloud of COVID right now, it's unpredictable, it's uncontrollable, and it's sustainable. And we have to think as business leaders about what can we control. Let's take a step back, slow down, and talk about what we can control. And as we think about that, there's a lot of things that we can control, there's a lot of things that we can't. But the leadership development that we do is the first thing that we say is, look, you can control the relationship between you and your employees. That's up to you to be able to show up every day as the best possible leader. And no matter what happens, you have the ability to control how you show up. And stress gets in our way. Stress it messes with our emotions. And when you have an employee as a business leader that may not be stepping up, may not be doing the exact thing that you want them to do, and you see it affecting your finances or your customers or other employees, it can be frustrating, and maybe you get angry. And if you have an angry outburst, that could hurt a relationship forever that you've worked on for a long, long time. Our mission is to make good bosses into great leaders with compassionate accountability, and that balance of compassionate accountability is a real challenge for most leaders. And the challenge for them is this, and I'd like leaders to think about this, because as a leader, it's actually counterintuitive to our situation now. So let's think about this. When things are going really, really well as a business, everybody's happy. This is great. Revenues are up, profits up. This is awesome. Employees are happy. Customers are happy. You lose a customer, no big deal. We'll get another one. Just think you're in a flow, right? And when we're like that, there's a lot more compassion and empathy, a lot more happiness, and a lot less accountability. Who needs it? We're doing When things are really tough, what happens? Well, people get scared. We call this thing, it's called fear. Fear gets into our bones, and we're afraid we're going to lose our business, we're going to lose customers, we're going to lose revenue, we're going to lose our house. People are losing their jobs. It's hard. And under these conditions, uncontrollable, unpredictable, sustainable. So what do we tend to do in businesses? We tend to get tougher. We tend to get more accountable with everything they're doing, because every little thing counts. So the compassion, accountability balance moves more towards the accountability side. And interestingly enough, with most people, is they think that it's either compassion or accountability. But the greatest leaders show both in the right amount at the right time. And the reason I talk to leaders about this being counterintuitive is when things are going really well, that's when the leader needs to step up and hold people to be more accountable. Because when things are going really well, people get sloppy. And revenue and profit hides sloppiness. So we need to be a little more disciplined. You don't have to be a drill sergeant about it. I'm not saying that. But we want to look at key performance indicators and really understand that just because things are going well, part of that might be luck. How are we always going to be working to get better and better and better regardless of the bottom line results? You should always be looking at that. So that when something like this happens, what's needed, again, it's counterintuitive, is a little bit more compassion and a little bit less accountability. And get people, because people are scared too, man. They're going to try to do the best they can. They're going to work hard. They're going to, oh my gosh, I could lose my job. People are thinking this every day. And when I think of, I had a podcast with Matt Rocco a little while back with eTech Global, and just getting to know this organization, the culture of it. And I got to tell you, Mike, what he told his staff when COVID hit, they got a 3,000 person international organization in call centers around the world. And this pandemic, this world pandemic is hitting. And here's what he told his executive team. You have been preparing for 20 years for this. Now let's go figure out a way to provide service to our customers and take care of our employees. And that was his message. And I love that, because he had so much faith in all the work they'd been doing with their executive team for years that he says, I know this is going to be tough, and we're in this together, showing compassion and empathy and the accountability and the vision of what is coming and what we need to do. So I sometimes think that out of fear, we let the environment drive us. When it's going well, we're a little bit too easygoing. When it's going poorly, we're a little bit too tough. And I want leaders to think about some balance in this, because if you get too tough and you get frustrated and even get angry, you're not going to show up as your best self as a leader. You're going to hurt those relationships. Kind of reminds me, Mike, of the baseball player that lost the perfect game on the very last play. It was the ninth inning, 2 outs. He had a perfect game. And I think there's only been 19 perfect games in Major League Baseball in history, something like that. It's a very small number. Armando Galarrago, I think his name, I'm going to mess up his name, but if you remember it, it was several years ago. And the very last out, the person was called safe at first. It was a close play at first, and the umpire called him safe. And they didn't have the replay back then. And everybody went crazy. I mean, the dugout went crazy. The players went crazy. The pitcher stood on the mound and just waited. They didn't overrule their call. They can't back then. It was before the replay. In fact, that's how they started the replay, was because of this. He stood there. He threw a few more pitches. They got the last guy out. He gets a shutout. He wins the game with a one-hitter. He walks off the mound, and he gets interviewed, and they said, Armando, weren't you angry? Weren't you upset? I mean, this is historical stuff for you to lose. And he goes, I wasn't happy with it. Well, why aren't you upset? He says, I have a 5-year-old son, and I wanted my son to see his dad standing there in the face of that kind of adversity and be proud of the way I handled myself, that I'm not going to go yelling and screaming and getting angry. I want my son to be proud of me. And I just thought, wow, that is maintaining some emotional control.
Yeah, that is huge. I think it's it speaks volumes to the concept of lead by example. Some of the things that you're kind of referencing there, and really showing up and being that leader for your team. I also think it's great stuff that you're providing, with this thought of like counterintuitiveness, that we might have this sort of knee-jerk reaction to cram down when things are tough, but that may be the time when leaders need to be the most compassionate, accountable for their team. And in our day-to-day at NC Planning, a lot of what I do is serving as outside general counsel for business owners and boards. And I think some of that stuff would resonate there. But let me ask this of you, Gary, if I can. As we talk about what leaders can do to be concerned about their teams, I also get equally concerned just talking to business owners quite often through this pandemic and other things, frankly, about, what are you going to do for yourself as well? Don't forget about taking time for you to de-stress, decompress, and make sure that you're taking the best care of yourself so that you can take the best care of your team. Any insight there that you can share?
Well, yeah. So, my second book, CEO's Journey, 7 Steps of Intentional Leadership. There we go.
On my
there
bedstand. On my bedstand.
On your bedstand. Step 1 is purpose. And under purpose, we have personal mission so that you know what you stand for. We have mindset. So we know we have a growth mindset. And we show up as the humble, caring, thoughtful boss that you can. And the third thing is balance. Spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social balance. There's this, we call it our SPIES model of balance: spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. Leaders have to recognize that they're under the same stress, and actually more stress than their employees. One of the reasons they're in the position is because typically these people can handle stress better than the average person. However, we need to take a breath. And when we have a 9-month leadership development program that we take into organizations. And the number one thing that we teach leaders is awareness. Be aware in the moment. How are you feeling? What's happening? And this whole development of emotional intelligence is a key, because emotional intelligence is only one of 2 scientifically measurable characteristics of leadership effectiveness. It's directly connected to sales effectiveness, leadership effectiveness, customer service effectiveness, all of these things. Emotional intelligence. In their awareness, when you're feeling that stress, when you're feeling things bubbling up, we teach them, take a breath, and sometimes just walk away. The phrase we like, it's not a good time. You turn your back and you walk away. And that's code for everybody that says, leave them alone right now. She needs to be given some space. He needs to be given some space, and allow them to just walk away and take care of themselves and come back to it. Because if we don't, our limbic system kicks in. And when the limbic system emotional center kicks in, it shuts off our neocortex. Scientifically, you cannot be at both at the same moment in time. That's why, Michael, we say stupid stuff when we're emotional. And we've all done it.
I've never been there. I have no idea.
No. Oh, good for you.
I've seen a couple movies here or there, but no.
I object.
There was somebody in law school that said at any moment, just if you're when in doubt, just say, I object.
I object. That's right.
What professor was. But Gary, I can't thank you enough for taking some time today to sit down and talk to me and share some of this insight with the folks that follow us. If anybody's new, please do. If you're looking at us on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. It helps out the channel. One last thing, Gary, from time to time, folks have follow-up questions. They find these videos informative sometimes, not usually when I'm talking. It's usually when folks like you are talking. If someone needs to find you, wants to look you up, is there a best way to get in touch with you that you can share with us?
Well, sure. My company's name is Statarius, which people's Latin might not be too good. Statarius. But let me make it easier for you. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Gary McGrath. And I just did this again today just to kind of check things out. I went into Google and I typed in Dr. Gary McGrath, and the whole page filled up with my videos, my website, with my LinkedIn connection. So if anybody needs to get me, either just type in Dr. Gary McGrath in Google, or give Michael Berger a call and say, how do I get a hold of this guy?
I'd be happy to share your direct cell phone number anytime. No, I'm kidding.
I love it.
We'll get you Gary's email. Gary, thank you so much. Stay safe, my friend, until I see you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
All right.